This podcast is sponsored by Bigger Brains, online training that won't bore you to tears. Expand the minds of your workforce at getbiggerbrains.com.
Welcome to Permission to Speak, the video blog and podcast that loiters at the intersection of leaders who want their people to speak up, technology that facilitates connections, and results that serve our higher purpose. Now, here's your host, Kelly Vandever.
Hello, welcome to the podcast. I'm Kelly Vandever, and my special guest today is Suzie Price. Hey, Suzie.
Hey there. Good to be here.
Suzie Price. Let me tell you a little bit about Suzie. Suzie's personal and professional model is Wake Up Eager. And I think you're going to see by the end of this podcast that she really lives up to that reputation. And she also helps her clients create environments so that their employees can wake up eager too. Suzie is a consultant, facilitator, author, and owner of Priceless Professionals Development, where she helps leaders bring out the best in their people. Her background includes several years in corporate America in operations, human resources, and training roles before starting her own business in 2004. Her clients at Priceless Professional Development include Georgia Power, Kimberly-Clark, Matrix Resources, McKesson, and many, many, many more. She is also the host of the Wake Up Eager Workforce podcast, where she openly shares everything you as a leader need to know to build high-performing and successful Wake Up Eager teams. Welcome, Suzie, to the podcast. So happy to have you.
Yay, happy to have you. It's always a good day when I get to spend time with Kelly Vandever.
You know the feeling is totally mutual.
We just like you said.
We do, don't we? Okay, so we like to start out the podcast with a couple of quirky questions to get to know you a little bit as a person before we delve into the content piece of things. So my first quirky question for you is, tell us about your favorite guilty pleasure television show.
Okay, so it is Don't Call Me When It's On, even though you can record it. I like to watch it live. Everybody who knows me knows, do not call when American Idol is on.
Oh, really? No kidding.
That's such a geeky thing. But yeah, I love it. I watch every episode. My poor husband gets roped into watching them with me, and then it's not his nature to get into that, but he'll even say, well, I didn't think that was very good because I'm so determined that we're going to watch it. So he starts judging with me. And I think, it's just fun. We only have one more season, so I'll be watching every episode this coming season. But I just like seeing the progression. I mean, not to turn it into a work conversation, but it just stirs my heart to see these young people who have talent and to watch it get nurtured through feedback and exposure and intensity. And it's just so fun to just see all that. Plus, it keeps me relevant in what's happening in the music world. Otherwise, I wouldn't know what's going on. So that's my pleasure.
Excellent.
Guilty pleasure.
Excellent. I have to tell you, there was somebody that was voted off this season who is kind of quirky, a woman, a young woman.
Yep.
Do you know what her name I can't think of her name, but I saw her perform at the National Speakers Association convention.
Joey.
Yes.
Her name is Julie. Yeah, she dresses a little funky or retro, and she has a whole different way of singing, and she's cute as a button.
She was amazing. She just blew us away. I'm getting goosebumps even just thinking about how good she is.
She was at the NSA conference. Is that what you said?
It was. She's actually engaged to one of our members' sons. So they use their connection. They're from Nashville, I believe, and I don't know how they met and all that good stuff. But I thought it was very cool that we had fame, that kind of fame on the stage.
Yeah. Her audition. You can really see what a nerd I am about this. Her audition was with the accordion.
No way.
Yeah, and it was like she walked in and she looked all kind of quirky, weird, and then she just started playing, and they were like, "Okay, I can't believe I like this, but I do." And we don't know what we're going to do with you. We don't know how you're even going to make it through, but you're going through.
That's awesome. And she's amazing. Got an amazing voice. So was
cool.
her last name Cook? Joey Cook?
I think so.
Right?
I think that was it. Yeah,
right, very cool. All right. Second quirky question for Suzie. What actor or actress would you want to play you in a movie?
Okay, so I came to this very quickly because the other thing I do when I am trying to relax is watch mysteries. And one of my favorite mysteries is the Rizzoli and Isles show.
Oh yeah.
And if you've ever seen it, Rizzoli is kind of the tough guy, gal, cop who's real direct and assertive. And then Mara is kind of the intellectual who likes to study. So I would like a mix of the two of them because I have a little of the both. It can kind of be direct and um, competitive and want to figure stuff out, but then I also like to learn and be a little nerdy about stuff. So I don't know if there'd be a mix of the two, but if I would take that.
Okay.
Though either one of them or both.
I'll let
Play
the
two versions of me.
what's
Yeah.
that?
They could play two versions of me.
There you go. There you go. I'll let the director figure out how they're going to work that
Yeah,
out.
they can figure out the details. Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. All righty. And now for a little more serious question. I'm curious about what your story is. What happened in your world, in your life, that got you to a place where you cared about employees and people waking up eager? What happened to you?
Yeah, so very clearly, I knew what the answer was to this when I saw the question. In my home, I had growing up very nice parents, but they didn't have leadership when they were children, and it never really got brought into our family. And so there wasn't a lot of leadership, there wasn't a lot of direction. And so my dad traveled all the time. He was all over the country, and my mom was there, and she struggled with waking up eager. Actually, struggled with kind of being present, being the leader. She had still has so many strengths and talents, but never really embraced them and wasn't able to, at that time we were growing up, feel good about herself and feel good about her leadership in the family. And I just, the way I coped was I just got curious about other people's families and just kind of went and connected. And, when I go back to my high school reunion, I'm literally going back to my family because those people were the people who grew me up. And
Mm,
so what I learned, by visiting and living at everybody else's house when I wasn't at my house was how they did leadership. I mean, because there's leadership in the home. How do they do family? And what is it like to have structure and to have somebody who's confident and have, people who enjoy every day? And so it just kind of developed within me. And then when I went to work, Kelly, when you and I talked last week about your best and worst bosses, because you were kind enough to share your thoughts for a podcast I did, you talked about having a lot of great bosses. Well, I worked in big companies at NCR, Oracle, State Farm, and I had a lot of good people that I worked with, but I can't say that I had a ton of great bosses.
oh
And
wow.
so it was okay, and there's a handful that I can pull on, but there's nothing like not having what you seek to get clear about what it looks like and how it should be. So with the personal example, and then in corporate America, having some good managers and maybe a couple really good managers and a lot that weren't all that effective, um, it was all instructive. So that's kind of where, and my first job out of college was with NCR Corporation. I was purely a newbie, but somehow I landed in the role that put me right in direct contact with the general manager who was responsible for 1,200 employees. So day in, day out, I saw how he led and he was awesome. And I saw, all his direct reports. I was very young and didn't know a clue what I was doing. But being exposed to this large manufacturing an engineering facility of a big corporation and seeing these leaders up front, I just always have been curious, and it was just perfect. And that's just been continued to be my focus is figure it out. How do you share it? How do you teach it? How do you do it?
Yeah, very cool, very cool. And I know we've had other conversations about what you do with your clients and how you help them in that way. So I know that you shared with me that there are four things in specific that you talk about with your clients to create a better work environment. And it sounds like you've taken an amalgamation. Is that I don't know if I'm using that word right, but
Yeah,
of
I
all
think
the,
you're.
of all the things that you've learned along the way that make a difference in how somebody leads. And so maybe is that how you came up with those four things in particular, or? Well,
That was a piece of it because I felt like a little bit of like a researcher. I mean, I didn't know officially that was my role and this was where I was going to land, but that really was, the search. How do you, and I didn't have the words wake up eager, but how do you like your life? How do you be effective?
mm,
And so, I was picking up tidbits all along the way. And then when I started my business, the very first year, I landed a contract to teach leadership skills, and it was through material that was already created by a company named Vital Learning. And I still offer those train the trainer tools. I don't teach it anymore, but I taught that a lot. And so it's powerful, it's good. The model works. They had 12 different modules. And so you know how we are when you're a consultant, you teach something and then you say, okay, how can I make this my own?
yeah.
And what am I hearing, what am I seeing, what does my experience tell me? So they leveraged, I leveraged their knowledge and what they teach and what I was seeing in my interactions with folks. And I guess the other piece that helped these tools, these four tools that I talk about, come into play is I'm very fond of the Gallup Research. They
Hmm.
were the
Hmm.
first group to, and I think it was 2004 when they rolled it out, or maybe early 2000, where they tied together these behaviors or statements that employees answer positively with bottom line business results.
Right.
And a lot of that's kind of a baseline too. So each one of these skills um, ties to the engagement questions, or piece of it anyway, what people want.
Yeah.
So that's a piece. And then I guess lastly, what I would say about them is, for me, when I use this model and I look or talk, or I'm coaching somebody and we're talking about, what's working, what's not working, or you're getting feedback on a 360, I can, in my, with these four skills, if there's a gap, it's usually in one of these areas.
Mm, gotcha.
It's a piece of the puzzle. It's not everything. It's not the knowledge piece. It's not the experience piece, but it is they are foundational skills that kind of undergird all of our interactions. And leadership is about interaction and communication. And so that's kind of a long-winded way of saying how I came up with these.
All right, let's not keep people in suspense any longer. I'm sure they're
Okay.
wanting to know what are those four things. So why
What
don't
are
you
those
share?
four things?
Why don't you share a little
I
bit about
like
each of
that
the
there's
four?
four. Yeah, I like that there's four because it's not theory. They're actual things you can do. So the first one is cultivate a positive sense of self and others. And this is the ability, I'll read the official definition. It is the ability to sustain or build confidence in others. And I'll give you an example. And it's an article that I just wrote. And it's a quote from David Duchovny, who was in X Files.
Yeah,
Can you
yeah,
picture?
yeah, yeah.
So back to the TV references. But I don't know what else he's done. But he was featured in Wall Street Journal, and he's talking about his basketball coach and his basketball coach from middle school. And I'm going to read his quote because it really exemplifies cultivate a positive sense of self and others, rather than me going on and on about what it is. This is how this coach, now Duchovny is in his 50s. He's been all over the world as an actor, famous, and probably has, a ton of money. So he's had all kinds of experiences. But this is what he remembers, right? Somebody who did this for him. And he says about his coach's name was Coach Byrne. He says, he saw potential in me and I began to respect myself.
Mm,
That is what a good coach does. He fills you with a belief that may or may not be justified as you make the dangerous crossing from unproven belief to actual accomplishment, from potential to reality. A good coach holds your hand so expertly that you don't even know your hand is being held. I got better. Oh, I'm getting chill bumps as I read this. I got better because Coach Byrne told me I was already better. It was that simple. It's a magic trick. And every success I've ever had since has had some of the same magic in it,
mm.
either at the hands of other skilled teachers or by the generous trickery of the voice inside me they instilled.
Oh, wow. How well said is that?
Is that good writing, first off?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, it's like, wow, that's really good writing. And it just gets to it. So, what voice are you putting inside of your folks? Are you seeing their potential? Are you beaming that to them? And it doesn't mean constant praise, but does mean pointing out what's working.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If I used to at some point in my career as a manager, I realized um, that the I didn't want it to be the only time they saw me was when I was coming to talk to them about something that messed up.
Yeah.
That I wanted there to be some positive experiences between me
Yeah.
and my employees, so I wasn't a dreaded presence in their world.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure it could never be credit.
I learned along the way. uh, but very good, very good. Now, so that's something that you work with your clients to understand what that looks like. So can you give us
Yeah.
some examples from some of the advice maybe that you give your coaching clients when you're trying to help bring this out in other people?
So it's oftentimes what I talk about is, and it really clicks with people, is it's some more Gallup research that says 3-to-1 ratio. Three positives to every one course correction really works for people in the work
Mm,
environment.
mm,
So sit back and look, if there's a relationship or someone who's not performing, there's other things you need to do, but that's one check-in point. Do they
ah,
have a 3-to-1 ratio with me?
gotcha. Good, good. That's
Do
very
I have a
actionable.
3-to-1 ratio? Yeah. Yeah. And the example I give is I was learning to play golf and I kind of got frustrated and stopped. One day I'll get back to it. But I was at the driving range and I have an okay swing. My father taught golf, so I know a little bit. And I'm swinging, and some guy who knows a lot comes and he's going to help me. And so what he does is critique my elbows and my shoulder and my swing and where my feet are. And that ratio in that conversation with him was 0 to 10.
Mm,
So guess where my swing went?
worse,
Nowhere.
worse. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Worse.
yeah.
I mean, it's like I'd left. And I haven't, now it's not his fault that I haven't golfed. I've been busy, but I haven't really picked it up since. So I mean, you think about learning something or improving, sometimes managers will say, well, I don't really, if they've, had some problems, if I encourage them, am I going to be giving them false hope? You know, everybody needs encouragement. And
Yeah.
one of the statements in the Gallup research that I talked about earlier, where they tied business results to things people need and want, one of them is, in the past 7 days, have I received appreciation or recognition for my work?
Yeah, yeah, and I love and I'm familiar with that book and that
Yeah, I
research
know.
too. And you're right, 7 days.
Yeah.
They are specific because it does matter how often you hear that praise. Very good.
So what we do for teaching is we practice it. We
Oh,
take a real,
nice.
real situation that they're working on, and they craft, how they're going to talk to the employee using all four skills. And then they have somebody play, just like you do a typical role play, somebody play the employee, and then somebody with a worksheet that's saying, how'd you do?
Yeah, very
You know,
good.
and typically will be, some of us are good, like I'm naturally good at that. I'm an encourager. I came in the world that way. I'm not good at the next one we're going to talk about. You know, so we'll see. I'll point a light on myself for that. But so, and what we'll do in coaching sometimes is I'll say to people, just put 3 pennies on your desk. And if they're just trying to get started every day, just in general, being more encouraging, and they know that's an issue or they're not doing much of it, move the penny into your pocket after you've expressed, here's something that went well. I really appreciate it. And
Very
and what
good.
I always say is be very specific about the praise. Don't just say "attaboy." I mean, it's better than not saying "attaboy," but how about, that was really good when you took the time with that customer and helped them through a challenging issue and you resolved it in like 15 minutes. I'm impressed. I mean, when you give the specifics and they know, okay, he liked or she liked that behavior,
Exactly.
and that works.
Absolutely. Very good. Very good. All right.
Yeah.
So now you've got us curious about what the second one is that you're not so
Yeah.
good at. So
I'm
what's
not so good at it. I'm better. But is address problems quickly.
ah
Address problems quickly. Focus on behaviors and facts. So that's the second one. And that is, if there is something not working, don't hold back. Be transparent. And the official definition is, this is the ability to quickly, specifically, and factually discuss problems in and around employee performance.
yeah, yeah.
So being honest and straightforward, telling people the real story. So what happens usually, what I see in interactions with people who are, talking about, I need to improve, or I've gotten some feedback where I'm not doing so well in this area, they either hold back, which is what I do, because I want everybody to win. I hold back and I think, well, they're going to get it. I just stay hopeful, instead of being looking at the facts and sharing the facts, or they go too fast and they're so blunt and they're maybe a little emotional in the sharing, and neither one of those are good extremes.
Right, right. So,
Yeah.
so do you find that most people um, are so where in the continuum are most people? Do most people hold back being really straightforward with the feedback when there are problems, or is there are more people too blunt, or where do you see people get challenged there?
I think I see people in both camps. So it depends on your style. It depends if you ever had a mentor who did it really well and modeled it for you, or if you've ever practiced it, and had a model for how to have that conversation or how to do this. So it's both camps. I don't see very many people who are really good in the middle, who
Mm,
are good at it. They're there and they're happening, and it is people who have decided to value honest and straightforward, and they don't make up stories, and they don't make excuses, and they don't blast people. They just and the way you do it is, the litmus test is focus on behaviors, focus on what you've seen and heard, and if it makes you nervous, you write it down in advance. I was actually doing that with a senior executive recently. So he wanted to discuss problems that an employee was having, and he knows that he skirts around it and softens it and makes it all nice and pretty. And this employee is going to lose his job if he doesn't hear what's really going on and what the perceptions are by other people. And
mm,
so he was putting it off. He's like, maybe so and so should come in and talk to him. And I said, no, I think you should talk to him. I didn't believe him because I'm the same way sometimes. I'm better at it. And, I will be too blunt sometimes. If I say something, I'm too blunt.
gotcha.
Or I hold off because I'm afraid I'm going to be too blunt. But anyway, he made a list of the behaviors, things he'd seen and things he'd heard, and then we reviewed it, and then he and I have a model that I teach to discuss problems, that kind of goes a little deeper into this, and it invites participation, and it does all the skills while helping someone address the problems and
Okay.
be exact.
So
So he hasn't had that conversation yet, so I'll have to let you know how that goes this week.
very good. Now, so what has your experience been, and that of your clients, when people do decide to take you at your word and know that it's important to address problems quickly? How do employees respond to that kind of feedback?
It's usually a change if they haven't been doing it, but if they do it effectively, which is the model, I'll go through the steps real quick. It's a warm opening, and it's a little bit from Crucial Conversations, but it's, just because you're going to say something that is challenging for someone to hear doesn't mean you can't say, hey, how you doing? Come on in. Let's talk for a minute. You've been doing okay? Well, that's the warm opening. And then the next step is state the problem. So I want to talk to you about something that I've been noticing lately, and I want to get your take on it. And then you list the facts. Here's what I've seen. You've been late 3 times. I see you on your phone in between breaks, on your personal phone, and whatever. List the facts.
Right,
And then before you go into telling them what they need to do, ask them, what do you think? You've noticed this?
right.
Because you're sharing facts. You get them talking. That's that inviting
Yeah,
participation, which is a skill. And then you ask them for solutions. So we've noticed this. This needs to be corrected. What do you think? What can you do differently? What kind of plan of action can you put together? And you get them talking first. And if they're off track, then you're going to get them on track. Most of the time, people will come up with their own plan.
hmm
And then the last step is close or advise, which is, okay. Let's review. What are you doing? And what did you say? What did I say? Get them to tell you, and then let's set up a time to review.
right.
Then you schedule right then a time to do it. WPSA. It works. And I've had people say, I don't want to do this. And then I'll say, well, just try it. And let's craft it and let's practice it. And then they come back and say, this stuff works. And it is what your best mentor did with you when he told you or she told you things you needed to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find people want to hear, they want that feedback. They don't want to even if they know they're doing something they shouldn't be doing, they want to know if someone's paying attention, or that
Yeah.
that it's, is it okay, not okay, and
Yeah.
more likely they want the feedback so they can improve. So
Yeah.
that's
If
what I
they
think.
don't know, how do they improve? It's actually a disservice not to do it. And I can remember my first boss, Mary, is a fake name I made up, but she was really good at number one, cultivate a positive sense. Yay, yay, go. But I didn't know things I wasn't doing. I didn't know. I was young. Foolish. I didn't know,
Right.
until it kind of turned into something. And then it'd be like, well, why didn't you tell me that 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, yeah. I always
Yeah.
equated it to that pebble in your shoe. It doesn't bother you
Ah,
at first, but with time, it gets worse and worse. That if you
yeah.
just took care of it early, it
Yeah.
wouldn't explode. So, all right.
Yeah.
So that's the first. The first is to cultivate the positive self and others, address problems quickly, and the third.
Third is lead by inviting participation.
So explain what you mean by that.
So this is, as a leader, the official definition is it's the ability to improve connection, personal rapport, and commitment by inviting participation and exchange of information and opinions. So it's, as a leader, being willing to say, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
How would you do it? And what it says to people is, hey, my opinions count, which is one of those things on the Gallup survey. And people are experiencing all kinds of information and they're out there doing the work. So if you're not saying, tell me what you think, and creating that kind of atmosphere, you're missing a whole boatload of information that'll help
Absolutely.
you make decisions. And just because you ask for their opinion doesn't mean you're going to use everything they say. Most of the time, when people feel heard, they're like, okay, and then you go back and say, this is what we decided, and here's why. They're
Yeah.
still engaged.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that last part is important too, going back and saying, here's what we decided and why. Being able to look your employees in the eye and say, I heard you, but we did it and this is why. And if you can't come up with that why, then maybe
Yeah.
you need to question your own motives. But anyways,
Yeah, I like that. That's true. That's true. And I'll never forget, I was working for a company and the leader had been let go, and we were all fit to be tied. Everybody had their resume out. And we were getting ready to walk. And the new guy comes in, and the first thing he did was go to each one of us, schedule time, and sat down in our office with us and asked questions.
nice.
And he heard a bunch of stuff he did not want to hear, and I know he heard it a bunch. But he sat there like he'd never heard it and said, okay, what do you think? What do you think's been going on? What do you want? How would things be better for you? And guess what? There was not a mass revolt. Just
Mm,
that one act of him sitting down and acknowledging, hey, your opinions count and you matter, and I want to know what you think. And it really, I mean, it just was having that one example was like, and that was 20 years ago. I still remember that.
absolutely. And I bet,
Yeah.
and you probably remember how it made you feel too.
Yeah.
That he even
Yeah. Yeah.
asked, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody felt the way. Yeah. But I can remember, well, let me tell you, because we all want to tell what we're thinking. Let me tell you what I think.
Uh, so
Uh,
when manager, well, let's say we're talking to that manager that's been doing it for a while. They're not the new guy that just came in,
yep.
like your example, um, and they feel like they haven't set an environment where they've invited people to participate, but they are seeing that what they're doing now is not working so well, and so maybe they want to
Right.
take this step to invite that participation. What's your thoughts there? What's your advice there? What have you seen help people make that kind of a transition?
It can be things like you might do a team survey. So you get everybody's feedback and then you set up time. People love to give their opinions, and the survey is a really great way to kind of restart. And it has to be a leader who is committed to, I'm willing to hear the information and I'm willing to take action on it. And action might mean a group meeting where you report back. But people get excited. Oh, I'm going to get to share my feedback, and then and that can help turn the dime, and then have a facilitated type session where you debrief. Okay, here's what we scored well. Here's what we need to work on. Here's what I'm going to do. What are you guys going to do? It's how the end result is. So that's a piece of it. It can be as simple as just not hoarding information.
Mm-hmm.
It's mine. I'm the leader. You don't need to know that. So the more you can share, of course, there's confidential things you can't share, but the more you can share, or it can be just recognizing that this builds energy and commitment on your team, and just saying, well, what do you think?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or I need your help.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I need your help thing I think is really powerful. I did not
Yeah.
use
What does it
that.
do for you?
Yeah, I didn't use that early in my leadership career. And then I realized people liked me and wanted to help me. And
Yeah.
sometimes I
Like,
needed to
hey,
say, I need help. I need your help on this. I don't know this, you know? So,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think initially, and maybe some folks don't ever let it go, and I've seen that, is they think I'm in charge and I need to be the boss.
right.
But the funny thing is about that, the more you be the boss, the more they work against you as the boss
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
and just give you yes answers when they mean no. Yes, okay, yes, I'll do that, and then they don't, and you wonder why. I wasn't part of the decision. I wasn't part of the dialogue, and I talk about a formula. It's ED, effective decision, ED, equals the right decision, RD, times commitment to the decision, CD.
Mm, mm,
ED equals RD times CD. So you got to get all the input to make the right decision. So if you're asking for feedback and opinions and what do you think and what are you seeing and what is the customer saying, and even if you don't like what you're hearing, you're at
right,
least getting the right information, so you're not stopping people from doing that and killing the messenger kind of thing.
right,
And then commitment to the decision is they were asked, so you make the decision and they are more committed to it, so then it turns into an effective decision.
right, right.
Yeah.
Well, what would you say to that manager that's out there listening that knows that they need to hear things, but they are very reactionary when they do, so that they do have a tendency to kill the messenger. What advice might you give to that person to help get to a better place where they can hear the things that they need to hear, and
Yeah.
why they would want to hear those things?
Yeah. So several things come to mind. One, awareness that they are killing the messenger. So are they even aware that they're doing it?
Ah,
And and sometimes 360 feedback can help with that. Sometimes a style assessment where you just say, well, this says that you might tend to. Have you noticed that? And what impact is that having, kind of thing? We're so building the awareness. That's a piece of it. The next skill we're going to talk about, which is listening aggressively, has a format that says before you say anything, you reflect, you probe, you support before you say what you think. So if they
mm,
can put a rubber band on their wrist and if they can come aware of it and then say I'm going to try it, put a rubber band on their wrist and kind of remember, okay, don't respond. The other thing is the 3-to-1 ratio helps.
mm,
Sometimes it's different, we're talking about something different, but it's the encourage. So if I'm going to encourage people and I realize that that has value, then that helps. Revisiting the Gallup information is a way to help people see, okay, my opinions count, and all of those things relate to bottom line results. So that helps sometimes the more rational people who say, I don't really want to do that.
yeah, yeah.
So kind of a mix of things depending on the person.
Gotcha, gotcha. Cool. Well, so you did kind of hint at the fourth thing there, and how that might also help with this. And life is messy, right?
Yes.
You may have four things, but there's clearly some
Oh,
bleeding over into the different areas, right?
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
definitely. Oh yeah, they all bleed over, and they're all, to me, continually needing to be developed. We're never done.
yeah.
They're effective because developing them can happen. You can always get better at all of these
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
always improve. And there's always going to be challenging situations and think, oh, I need to go back and reboot here.
Very good, very good. Okay, so the fourth one is, remind me again.
Listening aggressively.
That's right, listening aggressively. So talk some more about
Yeah.
that.
So that usually you'll hear if you're talking to a group of people in the room, and usually it's leaders, uh, and they love the words because they like when that's happened to them. And then when we ask people to list their best boss skills, always, I don't care if it's the steel worker at Koppel Steel or the medical device sales rep at McKesson, they all say my boss was a great listener.
Mm, mm.
And so that's why listening aggressively, and the reason I use the word aggressively is because it's an action. I'm not sitting here typing and you're talking and I can repeat every word you say and say, well, I heard you. Thanks. That's not listening aggressively. So here's the technical definition: is to hear with determination and energetic pursuit, demonstrating a desire to understand.
Mm,
So energetic pursuit.
Yeah.
I'm listening, I'm tuning in, I'm being present.
Yeah. Well, and that last part about understanding too.
Yeah, yeah,
That's powerful.
yeah, yeah. So if you can think of yourself as someone who's not listening to debate, but listening to understand, and that is something to untangle for most people. Um, so, and I have, to me, I have improved my ability on this greatly. It would not be my I'm a talker, as you can
Mhm.
tell, and I'm strong-minded sometimes, so this was not natural to me, but I'm good at it now, and I always find that there's more levels of good for myself in it. So, like
Mhm.
lately, I've been paying attention to how present am I in the moment?
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I thinking about other things while I'm doing all the actions that look like I'm listening? Or am I really being present, like, but am I really tuning in?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's what this is, and it's a powerful skill. And people listen to them. It changes. I think it changes everything.
I agree. I agree. I once heard somebody say, and I needed to hear this, that there's a that listening is not waiting for your turn to talk.
Yeah, yeah, those of us who like to talk. But and it's so beautiful. I mean, and one place that's helped me personally, and I have this 4 steps, and I really focus on it. But it helped me go to another level was this whole being present piece. And I did some speaking circles. I don't know if you've heard of that, but you get in front of the room and you can't have an agenda and you get up and speak and everybody listens. So while you're listening to everybody speaking, your whole job is to really listen. And it's interesting when you flip over from thinking about what you're going to say next
Hmm.
to beholding the person in front of you and just listening to them, something changes inside of
Yeah.
yourself, and it changes the person in front of the room
Mm.
too.
Mm. How do
Interesting.
you mean? How do you mean?
Well, I think we all want to be heard, and we've not often had people who are real good with that in our lives. So if there's been places where we've thought, I got to hurry up and say all that I got to say because they're going to listen to me very long, and then you have somebody who just is present with you, it just changes that whole dynamic. It increases confidence. It increases that my opinions count. It increases that this person cares about me. I matter. And all of
Yeah.
that plays a part in engagement and confidence.
And I think you've said it already, but let me just ask it again, outright. Why these four things, and why do you think leaders should pay attention to this and adopt these behaviors?
Yeah. I think they work. I've seen them work. Uh, and there's lots of people saying similar things in books, and so there's many good things. These aren't the only things, but I like them because they're four. They're not 800, and they cover the gamut around the interpersonal piece. They're actionable. You can practice them. They are backed up by Gallup Research because if you go look at those questions, they tie into all those questions. And I believe that just using them, if you decide to adopt these 4 skills, just using them, the proof is in the pudding. Talk is cheap.
Hmm.
Talking really, we're glad we're doing it, I'm glad we're here, but it really doesn't teach. You have to just go out and see, does this going to make a difference? And that's usually what we do in class. We break it down so I'm there, then I'm not there for 2 weeks. And when they come back, it's okay, let's talk about it. What worked, what didn't work. And there's a little bit of accountability to try it. And I've not had anybody try it and not say, this worked. It's better.
Yeah.
I'm feeling more effective.
So when you construct your relationship with your client, then you're not just like a come in one time and good luck with those skills. Am I hearing that you come back later or have some kind of checkpoint to see that
Yeah.
people are getting that? Is that kind of what I'm hearing, or?
Yeah. That's the ideal. We're always going to take clients where they're at and
Hmm.
what they can do now budget wise, and they might be have not done anything in ages and it's like this is all we can do. We'll work do that, because it's not my plan, it's what fits into their business.
Right.
But the ideal, because the way we learn, I mean, these behaviors, I mean, I even referenced it early on. I grew up in a family that wasn't real good at leadership and wasn't really good at doing these things. And so there's a lot of history for all of us in different areas. And so those habits of how we communicate when there's a conflict, or how we talk about problems with people, are long time habits, and they're not going to be changed. We're going to do a 2-hour thing and you're going to get the skills. Woohoo, done. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's okay. It's better than to not have the skills. So I'll take that. But the ideal would be, let's do some follow up. You can do a 360. You can do on these. I have a 360 for this. You can do, I have a self study tools page that I create for companies where it's their password and it has follow up material that they can use. I mean, you can create a whole program around it if they want. And then, of course, just to not to be salesy, but just to say, if people are wondering about these skills, they're also taught. They're very similar. They're not the same language, but in the Vital Learning Train the Trainer program, which has, they could take that in-house and figure out when they want to lead it. Mm-hmm. And it has online classes too. So you have, the stuff that helps people ingrain the new behaviors so they become new behaviors.
Well, what do you see as the biggest challenges? Like if somebody's listening to this and says, yeah, I think I'm getting this. I want to start implementing some of these things. What are some of the biggest challenges that people have in making some of those behavioral changes? You mentioned habits, but what else do you see?
Trying it, being afraid to try it. If you can practice in a safe situation, like I have a online class that I do, and I offer in the class 15 minutes of a phone call with me where they prep, like I've tell them how to use it, and then call me and we talk it through so they can at least practice privately in a non-threatening situation. So practice is a piece of it. It's, you have to have the awareness that you're not doing it, and you have to have the guts to try it. And awareness and guts can sometimes be a problem. Not saying guts like anybody's weak, but it is challenging to try a new behavior.
Right.
With
it's
people
awkward.
and managing for a while. It's awkward, and you think, well, I don't want to put myself out. So, you have to, that takes guts, courage.
What would you say, what would you say to encourage people to make the leap anyways, even though it's awkward or it is different? And, why should they do that? Why should they take that leap, that risk?
Well, they have to find their own why. But if I were to, because that has to really come from within, but my inspiration or motivation around it is, your leadership matters. When you walk off the elevator or when you walk into the shop floor, everybody's looking at you. And busy leaders forget that, and they forget how much impact their demeanor, what they say and what they do has on their workforce, because they're just in the thick of things. And it's understandably so. But, if you're really overwhelmed, back up and find these relational skills and make sure they're in place. And a lot of that overwhelm will go away, because some of that overwhelm is you not making the right decisions because you're not getting all the input, or people are working against you, even though they're saying yes, they mean no, or there's problems that have been festering. So it's, commit to and understand the impact that you have. View that as more than just my job that I go do, which I think at the heart, everybody wants to feel that way. And don't lose that, because when you first became a manager, that's what you were excited about. Yeah, it's fun to have power and more money. Yes. But part of it was, I want to make an impact.
Yeah.
And make a difference. And, I want to be like David Duchovny's basketball coach. I want to be that person. In fact, it makes me a little emotional just to say I don't need to be the star. I don't need to be remembered by everybody. But the people that are on my path, I want to impact them in a way that's positive. And these skills, if you're a leader, impact your people in a positive way, and it helps them reach their potential, which will help you reach your potential. And so I'm a little passionate about that.
I was going to say.
Back up. Yeah.
A passion is a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now do you see why I like this lady?
Thank you.
All right. Are there any specific stories from some of the clients that you worked with that you're open to share with us that kind of will help illustrate for those listening how this isn't just rhetoric. This is real life, and this stuff matters. Is there a story that you can share with us? You don't have to mention names or
Yeah.
companies. If
Yeah, I was thinking I would make sure I've couched it. So Mandy, we'll use Mandy as the name, was struggling, about to be put on a performance plan, manages a team of about 30 people, technically proficient, knows the industry, knows the business, has results, okay results, but the company wanted him to do a better job of promoting his people and engaging his people. He had a little bit of turnover. It wasn't drastic. And they also needed to build bench strength because they need more people to take on because they're growing.
mm,
And so they've said to these mid-level, upper-level type management positions, you need, this is a priority. If it hasn't been priority before and we hadn't said it, it is now. So Mandy is in this role, has been an okay leader until they got to, we're focusing on development now, and we're going to measure you based on how well you develop. And so I had the opportunity to spend some time with Mandy, and we did some assessments to help her see here's where you, and actually what's so cool about the assessments is you don't even have to say anything. They take them and you send them, and I have a little video that they go watch that gives them the first debrief before our call. And before they're, the first time they're on the call, I didn't have to say, well, your manager's saying, he's like, she is like saying, I'm not developing my people because it says here that I do this and I do that. How do I not do that? So, so it's like bingo, bingo, yay! So it's, it's awareness, and that in that particular situation, that person now was a trendsetter because she was really on the cusp of, she wanted it, she was quick to embrace it. And we went through the steps and we talked about there's little tools that go with each of these, like actual specific skill steps that say, okay, here's how you do this. And she started doing it and immediately started to feel like, okay, I get it. I get it. And is now, last email I got from her was, oh, I'm helping everybody else. And then I was just coaching somebody else there in the company, and they were saying, well, Mandy figured it out. And I've asked other people what Mandy's doing differently. And, so that was a real win. And it's really about Mandy, not Suzie and her skills, because Mandy was really ready. I mean, not everybody who hears this and takes an assessment is like, got it. But for her, she turned around the owner's perceptions and is now seen as, okay, she's really made a shift.
very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool.
so that's a good one. Good person.
Excellent, excellent. And that's part of why we do this, right? It's like
Yeah.
you're her middle school coach, the Duchovny
Yeah.
example, right?
I don't get to own the success, but I got to play a part. I got to sit on the bus with her and help steer for a little while. And
Yeah,
she took it,
that's
and has changed. I mean, it's hard to change others' perceptions when they decide that you don't develop your people well. They get it in their head, the leaders that were leading this person, and she did it. And it's because she was consistent and she went after it. She showed urgency and intensity and, did all the right things.
yeah.
And people started responding from her direct reports to the people she reports to.
And I think that's another really good point that you're making there. That it will take some time and
Yeah.
effort, but if you really are, if your intention is there, if you really do want to make it better, I think people respect that and
Yeah.
will recognize that.
Yeah. I'm a
So
big fan of too telling people what you're working on because they still have the lens of she doesn't develop people, she doesn't develop people. And so, the part of our process was we took the assessment results and had a conversation with her and her boss, what I call a triad call, and we debriefed what it said, and it was led to a conversation about, she was able to say, and I just facilitated it, this is what I'm working on. And
hmm
so now the boss is like, okay, so, and I want you to point out when I'm doing it and when I'm not. So when you ask for feedback like that, you show that kind of, it helps people take their glasses off and say, okay, wait a minute, she really is doing this. So
hmm
otherwise, they just assume that you're not making the
right.
effort. Goldsmith calls it feed forward.
Hmm
Marshall is a great executive coach, and he calls that feed forward, where you tell people what you're working on and ask them to help you with it.
Now, did she do the same with her employees to let them know that she was working on that too?
Yeah. Yeah, because she's been telling everybody about, oh, I had this coaching call with Suzie, so, and yeah, so, yeah, and this is what I'm doing, that they kind of have that friendly environment there. So it worked, in that organization. Not every. organization. Would that be comfortable? But in that one, they're very family-like, even though they're pretty big.
Well, I think too often leaders aren't willing to be vulnerable with their people, and that when you are willing to be vulnerable and say, "Hey, I'm trying to figure this out too. I'm trying to learn too," that people really respect and respond to that. Is that what you found, or
They get on
is that?
board with you.
Yeah, yeah,
And there'll be one or two who don't, and those will be their great teachers. You know, because we all know them, but we let the one or two stop us from helping or talking to the other 30.
mm,
You know, it's kind of the same thing with the cultivate a positive sense of the self and others. We have one or two people who are arrogant and don't need any more confidence, but the rest, the rest do. You
yeah,
know, really.
absolutely,
You
absolutely.
know.
Even the most confident people want to know that they're doing a good job sometimes, you know?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Very good.
Agree.
Well, Susie, this has been a wonderful conversation. Before we wrap it up, is there anything that you haven't shared with us today that you think might be good to put a little bow on the package?
I think we've hit it. Just to recap, cultivate a positive sense of self and others, address problems quickly, focus on behaviors and facts, lead by inviting participation and input, and listen aggressively.
Very good. And the results will be?
And the results will be, according to Gallup, that'll help you answer the Gallup questions with an affirmative, engagement type commitment questions. And according to them, the bottom line result is teams that can do that are $80,000 in revenue higher a month, 44% higher productivity scores, 38% higher customer service scores. So if you can get that commitment by, and I believe those skills help address the Gallup questions, Gallup has shown there's a bottom line impact. Plus, you're
Excellent.
going to be happier. You're going to be happier. Happy is good. Wake up eager is good.
I was going to go there next.
Oh,
And that's
yes.
how you
That's what
wake up
that
eager, right?
is. Yeah. 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 I
Excellent.
like to go to work. I want to be there, and you want to be there when you've got a committed team who's in it with you.
Absolutely. Well, great advice. Thank you so much, Susie. We'll go ahead and end the podcast there. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Kelly. It was a pleasure.
This podcast was brought to you by Bigger Brains, online training that won't bore you to tears. Expand the minds of your workforce at getbiggerbrains.com. Susie mentioned the Gallup Research several times. The book First Break All the Rules details the research and the 12 powerful questions that if you as a manager get the answers to these questions right from your people, then you will see those better bottom line results. So those 12 questions are: do I know what is expected of me at work? Do I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right? At work, do I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day? In the last 7 days, have I received recognition or praise for doing good work? Does my supervisor or someone at work seem to care about me as a person? Is there someone at work who encourages my development? At work, do my opinions seem to count? Does the mission or purpose of my company make me feel my job is important? Are my coworkers committed to doing quality work? Do I have a best friend at work? In the last 6 months, has someone at work talked to me about my progress? This last year, have I had opportunities at work to learn and grow? So for you, the more of your people who can answer in the affirmative to these questions, the better your group results when it comes to customer satisfaction, profitability, productivity, and reducing employee turnover. And the advice that Susie shared today will certainly take you well on that path. Enjoy! Thanks for tuning in to Permission to Speak. If you want to increase collaboration and innovation in your organization, check out more resources available at speakingpractically.com or give me a call, Kelly Vandever, at 770-597-1108.